The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jameson Rabbit. The man seated next to me was the inspiration for the elf on the shelf. His name is Mike Roth.
It was supposed to be the elf on the shelf, but a lot of people don't remember who elf is anymore, so it was just me.
Hey Willie, got any cats?
Do you ever do anything? Do you do the elf on the shelf?
Of course, he shows up every year. It's
Where's
amazing.
the oddest spot you've ever put him? Never mind. Don't
The back of
answer.
a Volkswagen.
Oh.
It's the most uncomfortable spot you've ever found. Yeah, I'm very glad we're outside of that season because Elf on the Shelf is frustrating.
It is. It started off as a whimsical type thing, and now it becomes a little pressure.
A lot of pressure. Gotta,
Yeah.
Anyways.
Like Christmas cards. Whoever came up with that idea, and I'm glad that's dead.
Yeah.
For me.
I send out cards for every holiday. You're getting your Groundhog Day card next week. Be ready.
You are one of those people.
You're getting one.
You know, those are just little envelopes of guilt.
Gonna superimpose my face over a groundhog and send it out. It's gonna be great. You're gonna love it. This week, sir, we have a couple of movies to talk about as we really start the push of 2020 movies.
Yeah.
But we also take another look back at what was our favorite films, the best movies in our eyes from 2019.
I find this so weird because January is notorious for having terrible movies,
Yeah.
and then we talk about the greatest movies.
Yes.
It's pretty cool.
It is good. And then we begin our push towards the Oscars, which are coming up in a month, and we can talk about things like that and look forward to movies that we're looking forward to this year. But today we're looking back at 2019. But first, let's get us started with what we have on the marquee. And the film that I have for us is the newest film starring Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, Bad Boys for Life, from director Adley El Arbi. This starts 17 years later, 17 years since the last Bad Boys film. We pull Martin Lawrence from his slumber to rejoin Will Smith as the buddy cop duo of Mike Lowry and his partner Marcus. And this film is... this film, to borrow from another buddy cop franchise, this film felt like I'm getting too old for this.
Oh, yeah.
The movie.
And they had to do that because, 17 years later, they should have been retired or at least promoted.
Yeah. So this film, there's a guy out there, Armando Armas, played by Jacob Scipio, who's out there doing bad things in Miami. He's seeking revenge on law enforcement officials, and ultimately he's seeking revenge on Mike Lowry. And he's out for revenge, and he does some things, and now Mike Lowry's out for revenge. Now we got Will Smith out there looking for blood. And this movie spends a lot of time dealing with Martin's character just wanting to be retired. Which is odd to me because I think the strength of this franchise has always been the dynamic between Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. And it's what made the original film so successful, I thought. And this film decides to separate them for a good chunk of the movie and be like, all right, we'll just have Martin in a Barca lounger, and we'll have Will Smith out there doing his thing. And it's weird because then Mike Lowry has to go and beg and coerce and guilt and threaten his partner to come out of retirement to one last ride, one last job. Let's do this. And it's weird. And why? Why does he have to beg him to do this? Because, Mike, if you know by the title, they're bad boys for life.
If anything, that part makes sense. I mean, the Martin Lawrence character does not seem like the kind of guy who really wants to risk his butt.
He wants to be with his new grandbaby.
Yeah, that's it. And that's great. And
he's been getting almost killed every day on the job with his partner.
And I enjoy that there's that little sense of realism. There is a lot of unreal things, like the magic of bullets and how much they could explode. And a lot of just goofy, stupid stuff that goes on throughout this whole movie. But in reality, Martin Lawrence would have retired when he wanted to retire.
Yes, he's enjoying his retirement. Mike Lowry's still out there chasing tail and dodging bullets and doing all these things and causing massive collateral damage to the city of Miami.
And I love how they do bring up his age quite frequently.
Yeah.
Like, hey, yeah, you're the bad boy, but you are also a very old person.
Yes.
And you should not be doing this. And that is one of the things that I appreciate about this movie, instead of just being, yeah, we're near senior citizen level, and we are doing all this action stuff.
Yeah, it's funny, too, because did you see Gemini Man?
Yes.
So if you enjoyed the plot of Gemini Man, I don't know anyone out there that did, but if you did, this film is going to bring you a very familiar feeling in the plot.
It's actually a combination of two movies. One you did not see last year, which was Spies in Disguise. He does mention pigeons, and the end of the movie is very much the moral of the story of Spies in Disguise.
Yeah.
So, for some reason, that combination of two movies that Will Smith made last year combined
So
together
weird.
in one.
So
I was
weird.
just like, at the end, I was like, oh, wow. And that actually made me enjoy it more. You could
I
watch
love
the
it.
Will Smith movies of last year, or
Yeah.
watch this one this year.
For me, like, I really enjoy the first Bad Boys movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of the greats. Probably my favorite Michael Bay movie. Like, I love that movie.
Yeah.
And it has a place in my heart, and I rewatched it very recently and still enjoyed it. I've never been a fan of the second one. I think the second one is meh. This one, it felt like the action was just full of empty calories. Like, things were just happening, but there were no stakes to anything. And everything that kept building and building and building until literally everything was on fire in this movie at one point.
Yeah, everything.
Just everything's on fire. And it just felt like I had this empty feeling in myself while I was watching it.
There was, it was an homage to Michael Bay. He was actually in the movie. He
Right.
plays a DJ.
Yeah.
Where a bullet can start flames
Sure.
all the time. It was constant, stupid explosions, just like Michael Bay would do.
He was so proud.
There's even one point where a guy on a motorcycle is driving past a flatbed that has a car on the back with a handgun.
Yep.
He pulls out the gun,
Boom.
blows up the car,
Flips
off-
over.
off the flatbed.
That's how it works.
And yeah, it was just blowing up all over the place. In a way, I mean, as much as I complain about stupid explosions, I had a little bit of fun in this movie.
I enjoy the dynamic between these two guys.
Yeah.
They're fun. I like seeing Joey Pants back as the chief. I enjoy that whole dynamic with them. It's just, this movie, like, if you ever forget what movie you're watching, they mention the title of the movie dozens of times.
Oh, yeah.
It's every 8 minutes. We're bad boys for life. We're bad boys for life. That's a sign of great screenwriting right there. Reiterate the title.
They already announced that they're making a Bad
Yeah.
Boys for
Why wouldn't you?
Life. It's going to be for life.
For life. Too legit to quit. I mean, ultimately, what did you end up giving Bad Boys for Life?
Okay, so I'm smiling. I'm saying I'm having fun and stuff. It's still a 3 movie. This movie is silly. It's stupid. But there's a lot of little nuances that made me really enjoy it. So I gave it a 3.
Sure.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I give it 2.5.
Nah,
It's there for me.
all right.
There's things I like, and there's things that I don't need to, like, revisit.
It's completely fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Empty. Anyways, moving on, sir. We have another film on the franchise. What do you got for us?
Another one no one was calling for.
Uh-huh.
Dolittle, which if you get onto IMDb, don't put in the doctor. It
Yeah.
makes it really confusing.
Sure does.
Dolittle, directed by Stephen Greggum, starring Robert Downey Jr. He is a Dr. Dolittle. His wife died in a trip or a journey to find this mystical fruit that's supposed to just cure everything. And after his wife's passing, he just becomes kind of shut off from the world. He's just going to stay at his little resort or little house with a bunch of animals and kind of avoid all the human life.
He's become a hermit.
He's become a hermit. A little boy that has a shot squirrel that he didn't mean to shoot it, but he shot it anyways. He is trying to get Dr. Dolittle to help out this squirrel, Meantime, there's a princess that wants Dr. Dolittle, who is the Queen's doctor, to come visit her right away because she is deathly ill. The boy, not really part of things, but just kind of tagged along until he won their hearts. He is on the adventure the entire time while Dr. Dolittle has to find the fruit that his wife died trying to find. Meanwhile, we have a lot of silly antics by a lot of talking animals. What I don't like about this movie, and I'm going to shoot this out.
Please.
There is a lot of scenarios in this where I think the writers were like, oh, I really want to see this, but I have no device to get to this.
Yes.
So why don't we just go throw it in and everybody's going to forgive us?
That was my big issue. This movie was edited incredibly poorly.
Yes.
Incomprehensible, incoherent editing to be like, why are we doing this? Where did this come from? And it felt like, I mean, we kind of used this analogy in the past where you just kind of like, somebody's walking down the hall with the screenplay and they drop the pages on the ground and they just pick them up and like, I think this was the order. We might be missing a couple.
Yeah. Well, there's a squirrel. It's really sassy. Let's have that story go nowhere.
It was so weird to me. And you have like good actors. And I like the mustache twirling villains that they had. Michael Sheen is great as the villain. And Jim Broadbent is great as the villain. And you've got fun. Antonio Banderas, I think he's fun.
His character was the worst for the turnaround.
Oh, absolutely. But it just felt like, God, and it not only that, but like all of the voice cast, which they got an amazing voice cast for these animals. There was something about it that the voices just kind of coming out of nowhere, and there's a lot of squabbling going on, and it was made like this cacophony of voices and sound that all felt disembodied from the characters to me. Unlike in some of the great Disney films where you see that and it makes sense, it feels like it's connected to the character. To me, a lot of the times it felt like I could hear them in the sound studio just saying their lines, and they had no connection to the movie at all.
Like when you're watching TV and the vocals are not going
They're just quite off.
It's a little bit
not
off.
quite synced. That's exactly
right.
how I felt like this, and it felt like Robert Downey Jr. was game for this, but you know, dealing with the doctor who's dealing with grief and helping these animals deal with their issues as he solves his crime. But the film, like the plot was very straightforward. You knew right away who the bad guy was, what the mission was, blah, blah, blah. And it's just a matter of getting there. And getting there was a really bumpy ride. As for the viewer, kind of dizzying to get from one thing to the next. And I don't know, it was confusing. And I think for little kids, this movie would be really confusing.
If you aren't paying attention to the plot or how you get to one point A or point B, much like a Michael Bay film, if you just passively watch it and just enjoy the animals,
just let it wash over you.
You're good. But if you're paying attention at all, it feels wonky. There's like points
really
where
messy.
people are like, "I want you dead," and then for no reason, just be like, "Yeah, you know what?"
And it felt way too long to me.
Yeah.
It didn't need to be this long.
I felt Bad Boys was a little long too.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
It was very weird because you have a lot of really great actors and people working on this, and for some reason it just felt it wasn't all completed.
Yeah, out of the voice actors, we have Octavia Spencer. And I can't
Yeah.
figure out why. Or Emma Thompson.
Yeah, Emma Thompson, the narrator.
Yeah, it's I don't get it. Robert Downey Jr., he has a lot of money. He just got done doing Iron Man.
Yeah.
He could retire if he want or just take great roles. Who was asking for Dr. Dolittle?
Yeah, not me, not this guy. What did you end up giving Dolittle?
I gave it a 2. I did enjoy the animals. They make me happy.
I'll co-sign with that. I gave it 2 stars as well. No need to rush out to go see this one, kids. It's fine. Let's take our time now to look back on the great films that we talked about from the year of 2019. We had a lot of movies.
Yeah, I know this is a difficult time for you because you've seen how many movies? 200?
212.
Okay, so you have to go through all of them.
I ranked them all.
All the stinkers, but I know you had a lot of movies that I did not see that you were just in love with.
Sure.
So making this list for you had to have been a little
It's
difficult.
always tough, and after the show, I will, like I do every year, I'll put my list, my entire 212 movie ranking up on our Facebook page and such and Twitter. But yeah, it's fun though, right? It's fun to rank movies, especially good ones, and to differentiate those terrible ones at the bottom.
Some of them, I mean, with the list that you were like, oh, everything that you had.
There's some titles in there you had to look up.
I had
I
titles.
had a few of those too. Where I'm like, what was this? Oh yeah, I did like that.
And one of them was on my top 10, and I was
Yes.
like, oh
I
my
had
gosh.
to look that movie up as well. I know what it is.
You know exactly.
And I wasn't sure what it was. And I remembered enjoying it. So let's start, sir, with our top 10 films of 2019. I'm going to let you begin with your number 10 film.
Number 10 is the one that I had to look up again, I Am Mother, which is a fantastic sci-fi movie that was streamed off of Netflix.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting myself to like this movie as much. The ending is wonky, but I thought it was a beautiful told story.
This is the one that I had to look up as well because I was like, I remember Ma with
Yeah.
Octavia Spencer. What was I Am Mother? I look it up and go, oh, I remember that. Okay, sure. That's funny. My number 10 film of 2019, I love this because I know there's some disagreement in here when we review these movies. My number 10 film is Little Women, Greta Gerwig's film starring Saoirse Ronan, Florence Pugh, Laura Dern. I really love this movie. I think the fact that you're able to make me care about this story that I'd never cared about before and tell this in a way that I was connected to was just a really good bit of writing and directing and getting the most out of this cast. And I really love this movie.
And this is a movie I really didn't like, but I understand that everybody else loves it, so I must be wrong.
You just don't have a soul. It's okay.
I don't get it.
Let's talk about your number 9 film, sir.
Number 9, I can't go through one of these lists without mentioning Star Wars. This trilogy was one of, not my favorite. Definitely the original is my favorite, but this is the end of a trilogy.
One of your
that
top
I thought,
3 favorite Star Wars trilogies? Would you put it
yes. I really like the direction that Disney is taking George Lucas's idea. And for years, I was really upset about the prequel movies. This is the ending of the trilogy, and I thought it was a fitting ending. I thought it was a good movie, a lot of action. I had some complaints, but overall, I left feeling very satisfied.
Very controversial.
And that's how it made my number 9.
Love it or hate it. That seems to be, there's not a lot of like, that was okay.
Yeah, it's a love or hate relationship.
Star Wars fans.
So what's yours?
My number 9 is a film called The Farewell, directed by Lulu Wang. Stars Awkwafina. It's a film dealing with cultural differences, dealing with grief, how families handle tragedy. It's a film where Awkwafina, who I'd known her kind of as a secondary character in a lot of comedic roles, and she took this and just jumped off the screen in this performance to me. And it was a film that hung with me for a couple of days after I saw it. And those are kind of few and far between. Even in my top 10, not all these movies are films that like hung in my head, you know. And when a film does that, it holds a special place for me. And this one kind of had me stirring it over in my head a little bit. So it comes in as my number 9. Should have been nominated, I think.
For my 8, I have the exact same feeling.
Ooh.
When I saw this movie, and I am talking about Midsommar, I left kind of underwhelmed with all the bad acting. And I thought that the horror film element was a little bit too gory and violent. It didn't really feel like it set well. But to this day, I can still remember vividly some of those scenes. And I love a horror movie that sheds light on everything. It doesn't hide anything. And this movie, even though I didn't review it excellently, it sticks with me and it keeps on replaying. And
it's something different, right?
It is
especially in the
something
horror
different.
genre.
Yeah, and I have to appreciate that. A couple of years ago when we did Sorry to Bother You, that movie also kept growing.
Still
on
haven't
me
seen
and
a movie
growing.
like that
It's
yet.
Still a great movie, and I like it more now than I did when I saw it in the theater. And same thing goes for Midsommar.
Yeah, I agree. My number 8 is a film that I believe when we did our mid-year rankings was my number 1.
Okay.
It slides down to number 8 for the
Wow.
final. Yeah, there's a lot of movies that came out since June, but it is the one action movie that I can't get enough of. John Wick: Parabellum. One of the single greatest action films I've seen in years. I love this movie. I've rewatched it umpteen times. A film that introduces a fanboy villain and unique kills and expands this John Wick universe even more. I'm obsessed with this universe.
Book foo, horse foo.
Oh, yeah, it's just the best. It's so much fun. It's fun just to cheer for a movie when you're watching it. There's very few of those.
That almost made my list.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for, I wanted it to close up,
Yeah.
and that's the only
There's
thing
another
that
one
really,
coming. They're going to keep coming.
They're going to keep on coming until Keanu dies.
That's right.
And then they'll probably do that creepy CG
Oh,
phase.
yeah, I do. Scott, I don't want that. I don't want any of that. All right, you're number 7, sir.
Number 7 is Yesterday. I thought this was a really unique spin and a great music comedy. I thought it was fantastic. It takes place if the Beatles never existed and only 1 or 2 people in the whole world really remember what the Beatles songs were. And he wrestles with this not being his, but he wants to expose the world to it. I thought it was a very fun and just relaxing type movie. Made me smile a lot.
I like this universe because Oasis doesn't exist in this universe.
There's a lot. What was it?
Coca-Cola
doesn't
Cigarettes
exist.
don't exist. Like, there's a lot of things that don't exist in this universe. Kind of interesting. What are we at? Number 7? Number
Don't
7.
like Wonderwall?
Not a fan.
Okay.
My number 7 movie is The Irishman, the Netflix film. Martin Scorsese's passion project, kind of bringing together the great actors of this previous generation to tell the story of what may have happened to Jimmy Hoffa. Are you trying to drink my soda? I think it's an incredibly well-made film. There's issues, kind of a little bit of weird, wonky visuals in here, but as a story and as a whole coming together of this project, I really, really enjoyed it. It's a long film. I watched it twice in the first week. I just really loved A, getting these people together, and B, just I could feel Scorsese's passion for this project coming through, and I really enjoy this film.
I can't get
Joe Pesci?
Not Joe Pesci.
Robert De Niro?
No.
Al Pacino?
Thank you.
Okay.
Al Pacino's
I was going to keep
face.
going.
Yeah. I'll just go through all of them.
We got the cast. So anyways, that's The Irishman is my number 7. You're number 6, sir.
Number 6 is The Joker. I've been wanting a bad boy villain movie come out. I'm glad they chose The Joker. I'm glad they didn't go all weird with it. They tried to keep it serious, like this is a real world scenario. It shot well. It was acted really well. It was a fantastic movie.
All right.
And that's all I have to say about that.
Fair enough. My number 6 is a film that you talked about. It is Midsommar, Ari Aster's instant classic A24 film. Florence Pugh, who starred in it, has become one of my go-to actresses. She was also,
Okay.
in Little Women. I really love her. I'm looking forward to her.
She was, yeah.
I'm looking forward to her in the Black Widow movie. She's like the only thing I'm really looking forward to in that. And I love how they build an atmosphere of uneasiness in a place that looks like paradise, and how you can feel trapped and claustrophobic in a wide open space. And I like that uneasy feeling I had watching this movie, and really enjoyed it. I think I've seen it 3 times now.
Yeah,
It's good.
It's on my queue of things I need to buy.
Yeah. Good flick. So that's my number 6. Top 5 time, sir.
Top 5. This is one that a lot of people probably would not mention, but Ready or Not, I like horror comedies. We didn't get many. I think that might be the only one. It's just a fun hide and seek movie where she figures out the game a little probably too late, and
It's a fun movie.
It is a super fun movie, and a horror comedy to boot. It was just fast-packed. What can I say?
It surprised me.
Yeah.
It was better than I was expecting it to be, which is awesome.
And just remind people, these aren't things that we're thinking are worthy of Oscars.
Personal favorites.
This is a personal favorite.
Absolutely. My number 5 is Jojo Rabbit, Taika Waititi's hilarious, touching film set during World War II, in which a young boy named Jojo has an imaginary friend who just happens to be Adolf Hitler. It's absurd. It's hilarious. It's heartbreaking in moments. Thomasin McKenzie is great in this. I love her. And, I just like to celebrate original ideas. And this is very much an original idea when you tell people what Jojo Rabbit's concept is. Get some looks.
And a plug for Palace Marcus Theaters. They didn't have this running when it first came out, but they will be running it for the Oscars. Yep, I'm going to try to get it to it.
Good stuff. So anyways, that's my number 5. You're number 4, sir.
Number 4, Missing Link animated film. Just great. I love the message. It was funny, creative. Surprised the heck out of me when I watched this movie. You did not watch it right away, but
I
you
was
did
gone the
watch
week
it.
you reviewed it, and
Yeah.
your review led me to go and watch it, and I loved it.
Yeah, excellent,
Yeah,
good.
It was very good.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it wins the Oscar.
I would think it should.
hoping it
Out
does.
of all the animated movies, that is the best.
My number 4 is a film that we reviewed last week. I'm not going to dig too deep into it because we just talked about it. It's 1917, Sam Mendes' incredible war epic, a very personal tale for him. It's shot so incredibly well. It's one of the more beautiful movies you're going to see. Love it.
Yeah.
If you want to find more of my thoughts on it, just watch last week's episode.
Just didn't make my list this time.
Oh, darn. That is my number 4. Sir, your number 3.
Number 3, Avengers, again, tying up a huge swath of time of epic proportions. This was a final of something that's been going on for past decade, and again, left extremely satisfied. Went through all sorts of emotion.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic finale.
Pulled off the impossible.
Yeah.
Just tying it all together nice.
For as long as this movie was, and I still watched it a couple of times at the theater, it was fantastic.
Awesome. My number 3 is a film that you did not care for, but it's a film that made my top 3. It is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Tarantino, I think he did a great job building a Twilight Zone version of a familiar place and time, and that allows him to kind of tweak things, and I think he got some great performances throughout, especially from the 2 male leads. And it's a film that, for me, has gotten better with time and rewatches. I recently rewatched it a couple weeks ago. Loved it more than the first time I saw it in the theater.
I'll give it another try.
Give it a try.
Yeah.
I love it. So anyways, that's my number 3. Your number 2, sir.
Knives Out. Love to finally see a mystery that is a mystery. It's not a Scooby-Doo ending. Actively engaging throughout the entire film. Fantastic movie. I hope it wins something.
It should.
Yeah.
Ryan Johnson did a great job with that film.
Your number 2, sir.
My number 2 is The Lighthouse, Robert Eggers' film starring Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. Most years, this would be my number 1 film. Like, I love this movie. The best acting performance of the year comes from Willem Dafoe. The visuals, the cinematography, the madness, and you begin to question reality and what's really happening in this film, and it's difficult to watch. But it's setting the story of the gods Patrius and Prometheus, and the look, the sound, it's maddening, it's darkly hilarious. It also has some really tough scenes with birds, which really get me.
I remember that.
But this movie, I just rewatched it again recently and was just drawn in instantly by it. Willem Dafoe is just incredible in this movie, and he should have been nominated. But it is my number 2 film. There's only one film better than that. We'll find out what that is in a moment. What's your number 1 movie of the year?
I lied. 1917. It was the best movie of the year. I'm doing that for the audience.
Nice job.
Yeah, well...
way to build suspense.
Yeah, what can you say? It's the best movie of the year for me. I hope it wins best at the Oscars. It is fantastically shot. I really don't like war movies that much. This one, just the best one I've seen since Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. My number 1 film for 2019 is Parasite, written and directed by Bong Joon-ho. A story of this unfortunate family living below the city like rats, trying to come up with a scheme to become wealthy. When their son is given a job as a tutor to a wealthy family's daughter, their plan goes into place, and the way this family kind of slowly gets their hooks into this wealthy family, and this family that's wealthy is unsuspecting, and unlike a lot of films, it doesn't play up the class system as like, well, if you're wealthy, you obviously deserve a comeuppance. You know, there can just be, you can be just bad people or good people, and class doesn't necessarily play into that. There's really funny bits. There's great suspense. There's great character motivations that change naturally, and I was just blown away by this movie. It's the only film on this list that I think I haven't been able to rewatch. I'm really looking forward to when they do the re-release for the Oscars. But
is this streaming yet or on disc?
No.
No?
Nowhere.
Okay. They're going to wait.
Yeah.
'Cause
But
it hasn't been close to me.
Yeah, it's so good. I love it. I love it. So anyways, those are our number 1 films, 1917 and Parasite. Both films are nominated for Best Picture this year as well. So
Very cool.
we'll be talking about that in the near future. Let's take a look ahead really quickly. What is coming soon, the weekend of January 31st, we have 2 films coming out. The first one is Gretel and Hansel. Oh, we're flipping it, Mike.
It looks interesting.
I'm done with these Hansel and Gretel stories.
I'm okay with
I've been
it.
burned so many times by these movies. And then we also have the rhythm section. Blake Lively in an action thriller where she is out for revenge. Kind of looks like Atomic Blonde or any The Long Kiss Goodnight. She.
Is it going to be forgettable?
It might be.
Okay.
Very well could be. Before we leave, we want to thank our sponsor, Marcus Theaters. Thank you for sponsoring this program, The Palace here in Sun Prairie. Amazing things happen there. Next week, we're going to be talking about films like The Gentleman, The Turning, and The Last Full Measure. But until that time, I'm Jameson.
I'm Mike Roth.
Thanks for watching.